The Great Depression started when people got overly confident in the stock market. They would often take large loans out from the bank and put it all into the stock market, not knowing if it would help them or crash. Well, the stock market crashed and caused people to lose all of their money. Without money to give back to the bank started taking homes away as a way for a payment. With this happening more and more often, it eventually led to the Great Depression, leaving many people homeless and without money. Soon after the stock market crashed, a drought began. The crops did not grow and the ground became very dry. The dust from the ground would sometimes be lifted up to create huge dust storms that left everything in its path covered in it. It said that sometimes it was so strong that it could take the paint off of a car. Because of the dust, it caused farmers to lose work. Many went to California or Florida to work as fruit pickers. People from Oklahoma traveled and did hard field work for very little money. Soon after, many people lost their homes. Towns called Hoovervilles were being built. A Hooverville is where they took scraps of old wood, metal, or anything they could find and built a house from it. It made very shabby towns, and many people lived there. When World War I happened, many veterans were promised $1,000 for their service. The government had decided to wait to pay them. Outraged and desperate for money, veterans and their families marched to Washington in a riot. Hoover had called out the military, and several men were killed during this fight. They burned down a Hooverville, killing some men and an infant. Herbert Hoover was the president when the Great Depression started. At the time, he was known as one of the greatest presidents. Hoover looked over the problem as it would solve itself as the Great Depression went on, but it just got worse and worse. When the election came up, Franklin Roosevelt won by far, kicking Hoover out of the position. Roosevelt was the 32nd president of the United States. When he came into office, he had the idea of the New Deal that would help bring America out of depression. He had suffered from polio all of his life, and no one knew it until after his time in office. He did not want people to think just because he could not walk, he was any less able to take care of things. Eleanor Roosevelt, Franklin's wife, was the first active First Lady. She was involved in many human rights acts and was loved by many people. Many of the pictures we see from the Great Depression today was taken by Dorothea Lange. She went around and took pictures of many people during the Great Depression, her most famous one being the immigrant mother. Education was not the biggest thing during the Great Depression, but Mary McLeod was an African-American educator and a civil rights leader. She began a small school called Bethune-Cookman and later became a university. After time, she became an advisor to FDR. Huey Long was a governor of Louisiana known as the Kingfish. He thought that everyone should share their wealth and that people would make money, so that people could make some money during the Great Depression. Taking money from everyone and giving it all out evenly was not something everyone wanted, and Long ended up being assassinated in 1935. Social Security was brought around during the Great Depression. Like today, it provides money for people who could not work or find work. In order for people to work, there needed to be jobs, so the Tennessee Valley Authority, or the TVA, was brought around in areas that got hit hardest with the Great Depression. Tennessee and West Virginia had flood control brought in along with hydroelectricity, providing jobs for many people. Men who had families had the chance to work on an outdoor work for $30 a month, but 22 of it was sent to their families for food and supplies. It was for the men between the ages of 17 and 29. Because people had no money, they had none to put in the banks, or those who did have money kept it in their house and feared that they would lose their money again. The banks had no income, so they were shutting down until the FDIC came into plan. The government gave banks money, so even if the bank lost money, people would still have theirs. Many people supported the New Deal, such as small farmers, Jews, ethnic blue-collar workers, and African Americans. It gave them all support, money, and a better life. Republicans wanted to stick with the traditional base of political support. Overall, the New Deal had a good impact and helped bring America out of depression.